If you are wondering whether you should play Star Wars The Old Republic or Guild Wars 2 in 2024, then this video is for you. I will share my experience to help you judge which one of the two is better fit for what you want from a game. See, both titles are MMORPGs that were released around the same time in 2012. However, they offer vastly different experiences. The first glaring difference is, well, of course, the setting, but you already knew that. What you might not know without playing both titles is the difference in game's focus. SWTOR, which we will call Star Wars The Old Republic, offers narrative-driven experience, which plays more like a single-player game from BioWare akin to Mass Effect. You can actually go through entire leveling process of your character without having any group content experience with other players, if you choose so. Naturally, you will see other players, but you do not have to interact with them. Guild Wars 2, on the other hand, is focused on open-world exploration and interactions with other players. You have a storyline, but it plays the second fiddle to open-world activities. You will see a lot of other players and, what's great, actually interact with them whether you want it or not. There are live events on every map, and even starting zones can be fairly well populated, which is a nice change from the typical MMORPG experience. Guild Wars 2 is actually the only MMORPG that I have played in a while which feels like an actual MMO. See, such design choices in both games come with consequences. SWTOR offers a clear sense of direction and motivation where the next objective is always clear and selected for you. It's quest after quest after quest. The feeling of freedom is not really present here, but you never feel lost. Guild Wars 2, on the other hand, is a very open experience where, besides the initial tutorial quest, you are thrown into the open world with a fuck ton of choices. This freedom sounds great on paper, right? But it can actually be overwhelming and confusing. In fact, I personally bounced off the game due to this many times, feeling confused, unsure what to do and how to progress. So the first question you should answer for deciding which game you want to play now is this. What experience are you craving right now? Do you feel like going through Star Wars class stories? Or perhaps you want to roam the world in Guild Wars 2? Now that we talked about this biggest difference between SWTOR and Guild Wars 2, let's discuss various aspects that may impact your choice, starting with the business models of these titles. Both games are in theory free to play, but are, as expected, restrictive for free players. From the list of restrictions, I find Guild Wars 2 to offer more restricted leveling experience than that in SWTOR when it comes to free-to-play players. But if you are okay with these restrictions, then you can play both titles free until their expansions kick in. But eventually, if you enjoy either title, you will want to invest some money into it. And here is where the differences begin. Star Wars has a subscription model where you unlock access to all content by subscribing at least once. And when your subscription expires, your account changes status to preferred, which is a member tier between subscriber and free-to-play. Guild Wars 2 is a buy-to-play from expansion's perspective in its monetization. There's no subscription fee, it's buy once and enjoy the game model. From the initial cost of enjoying the content, I like Guild Wars 2 approach much more. There is no FOMO and dilemma in this model. I don't feel like I wasted my money if I want to jump into Guild Wars 2 for just few days in a month. Both games have also in-game shop. Guild Wars 2 and SWTOR both focus on selling you fashion items and conveniences. And as always, when company sells you convenience, they have to create inconvenience for those of us who choose not to pay, and they do it to push the sales. Guild Wars 2, for instance, monetizes bank and inventory space a lot, while SWTOR offers paid benefits like rocket boost to make traversing indoor locations faster or ability to choose various species available for character creation. Although both games allow the usage of in-game earned currency to unlock stuff, they naturally want you to pay for it instead. SWTOR has legacy system that allows buying conveniences as you continue playing more. Guild Wars 2 has in-game real money trading system of exchanging in-game gold for real money currency, and the other way around too. Which one is better for you depends heavily on how you usually interact with in-game shops and which psychological tactics work on you the most. So you will have to decide for yourself. Now, let's shift our attention to two other important areas of games, namely open world exploration and then story. Guild Wars 2 has the best open world gameplay I have ever experienced in MMORPG, and that's not a recency bias. Traveling is fun, with the best mounts in the genre and vertical vast maps. Each mount has actually a function in this game and operates differently with their unique momentum and traversing methods. Events happening across the world are fun, diverse, rewarding and populated with players. Game design rewards interacting and helping other players, which makes for the most community feeling I've had in a long time. Let me tell you actually a story to showcase this, and unfortunately I don't have footage from that session, so try to picture the vibe. I was running around blindly looking for hero challenges to unlock my elite specialization. I wanted my warrior to become a berserker. I met a player on one such challenge. He asked me if I am doing hero points as well, and we made a party. My new buddy was more experienced than me, so he was helping me a lot. He did not have to at all, and I actually think I slew him down. So we were jumping for an hour from one hero challenge to another, and at one point, when running from one point to another, we encountered a group of people doing a group event, killing a harder boss. Without saying a word, we both changed our course to join them. This turned into a longer event with some nice rewards. After this event, my new buddy said, "That's why I love Guild Wars 2. And you know what? I fully agree with him. No other MMORPG that I've played had this sense of camaraderie, of tackling challenges together. The game promotes interactions and supporting other players with its core design choices, and I fucking love it. SWTOR open world is boring in comparison. During the leveling process, you traverse from quick travel point to quest objective location, avoiding fighting as much as possible. Nothing interesting happens along the way besides listening to a very good ambient music. You do not interact with other players in the open world. Like I mentioned, Star Wars The Old Republic is more like a single-player game during leveling process, where other players go about their own business. The game does not incentivize you to interact with open world besides quest objectives, and that's a shame. All in all, open world gameplay is significantly in favor of Guild Wars 2. Now let's talk about the story and quests. Story might be the biggest selling point of SWTOR, so the game wins in this department. The quality of the class stories depends, however, on which class you pick. From those I have played, Sith Warrior was awesome experience. Bounty Hunter was also very cool. Commando, however, was boring as hell. You also make tons of dialogue choices that have an impact on how the story actually plays out in Star Wars The Old Republic, which is not something common that you see in MMORPGs. The story has interesting companions and story NPCs with whom you grow a bond or detest them. However, the quality of the story past the class questline is not as good as the initial 50 levels, in my opinion. The storyline of the entire game is also voice acted, and it's done really well. When it comes to Guild Wars 2, I heard over the years negative things about the story. The presentation is in fact unusual. We have more static scenes in the base game where character models just have a dialogue. This presentation style might not sit well with everyone. However, this method of telling the story changes in expansions with more active form of showing the story on top of just telling it. I am currently playing through Path of Fire expansion storyline and I am enjoying it immensely. The characters in the story are interesting and you actually bond with them. Your team is small and so each character gets plenty of screen time. And just like in case of SWTOR, quests are also voice acted. All in all, if you wanna choose MMORPG from these two for the sake of the story and you dig sci-fi setting of a conflict between two huge powers, go with Star Wars The Old Republic. But Guild Wars 2 is not bad in this story department by any means, and if you give it some time, you may grow to like it a lot. Now, let's talk about combat, which is a make or break aspect for me personally in terms of enjoying whatever the gameplay loop an MMORPG has to offer. Both games are tap targeting style games, with Guild Wars 2 having more of an action-like style. You can actually turn on action camera in Guild Wars 2, making it feel more like Terra. Rest in peace, my friend. It's fast-paced, very mobile and with high action per minute style of gameplay. SWTOR, on the other hand, plays more like WoW. Many abilities have casting time and require you to stand still, depending on the class you choose. Besides the telegraphed AoE attacks, you actually do not have to move that much. I enjoy both titles, but there's an aspect that makes my enjoyment from combat conditional. Difficulty is that factor. SWTOR's difficulty is laughable at best during leveling in both main story questing and flashpoints, which are games dungeons. In fact, flashpoints are so fucking easy that nobody runs a healer and a tank in them. They just roll with 4 DPS players. Guild Wars 2 difficulty is higher, especially in expansion maps, where you can get wrecked by elite mobs or bosses if you are not experienced or careful. Now let's move on to graphics. Both games aged very good in my view. The art style of SWTOR makes title timeless. The game has this cartoonish style which looks good even now in 2024. BioWare even improved lighting system in a recent patch, though two things stand out in a negative way from graphical standpoint. First are the low quality textures on many surfaces, but that is expected with age, I guess. And the second one is the small number of variety in characters' faces and hairstyles. It might sound like a nitpicking, but it actually bothered me a lot. In SWTOR you meet a lot of humanoid characters in your playtime, and they all look very samey, which gets annoying real quick. Guild Wars 2 on the other hand has more serious look, but ages great for me as well. Newer maps from expansions look particularly great. However, textures can also show some aging, just like in case of SWTOR. Both games are after all from 2012. The great thing about the maps design in Guild Wars 2 is actually how dense they are with objects and details. They feel packed even though they are huge. And lastly, let's talk about the potential longevity of both games. Starting with population. I found both games to be fairly popular for 12 years old games. We don't have full numbers since both titles are available outside of Steam, and Guild Wars 2 became available on Steam only in August 2022, so 10 years after its initial release. But by looking at Steam chart numbers, we can see that from Steam alone we have a healthy 4,000 average concurrent players for both games. Since Guild Wars 2 encourages open world activities with other players like world bosses and active events, you feel healthy population of the game much more there than in SWTOR. But you shouldn't worry about that, in my opinion. You will find in both titles a lot of players to interact with. And how about the game's support? Well, Guild Wars 2 had a history of huge droughts in expansions. As you can see on the screen now, it took ArenaNet 3 years to release first major expansion. After Path of Fire, we had 4.5 years of wait time for the third expansion. But something has changed since End of Dragons. Since 2022 we had 2 expansions and expect another one this year. So unlike most MMORPGs, Guild Wars 2 increases their efforts put into the new content, while most of the industry actually slows down as the games age. Now, let's take a look at SWTOR. The expansions here focus mainly on storylines with a couple of new operations and flashpoints added to the game with each expansion. The new additions to the game are rather slower, especially in more recent years, and they don't seem to be as vast additions as other MMOs, including Guild Wars 2, offer. Also, important to note is that recently SWTOR was moved from BioWare to Broadsword, which is a third-party company. Does it mean that we can expect more new content in SWTOR than in the past years? Or perhaps the game will move to maintenance mode from now on? Hard to tell, we can only guess. The funny thing is that I would not be surprised with either outcome. All in all, I would trust more in future updates of Guild Wars 2 than that of SWTOR. From the company's perspective, it seems ArenaNet cares a little bit more about their product than BioWare did. So, that's my comparison between SWTOR and Guild Wars 2. I'm not sure if you've noticed from the script, but I enjoy both games, with admittedly valuing what Guild Wars 2 has to offer a little bit more. When I crave single-player story-driven experiences like that of SWTOR, I actually rather play games like Witcher 3. I jump into MMORPGs for group content, and Guild Wars 2 is so far better in this regard. Also, please note that I am primarily PvE player who has not experienced endgame of either title yet. And so, if you are craving PvP experience, then you should check other videos. For those of you who played both titles, which game do you prefer? Do you have the same experience as mine with SWTOR and Guild Wars 2? Or perhaps you see both titles differently? Let us know in the comment section to help others make an informed choice. Anyway, that's all from me for this video. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.